Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Nathan Fox, that's Ben Olson. We're the founders of LSATdemon.com and our weekly podcast, Thinking LSAT. We've got an email here from Ed.
Hey, Ben and Nathan. So I finally scored a 175 on a practice test a few weeks ago, getting -1 in logical reasoning, -0 in games, and -4 in reading comp. I convinced myself that it wasn't an accurate score because I mildly remembered a few of the first questions in logical reasoning and a passage in reading comp, although I've forgotten the answers by then. I had forgotten the answers by then. The doubt that I'm actually capable of scoring in the 170s has contributed to me overthinking each question in logical reasoning. Starting off a section, I find myself already thinking about getting the whole thing correct to prove I'm actually capable. This leads me to stressing about every question from the beginning of the section, second guessing myself on easy questions. You guys on the podcast have consistently talked about not giving the test much credit because it's easy, but I've been falling into that trap by being so worried about missing one or not having time to get to all the questions.
Yeah, your problem is you're trying to do the whole section instead of doing one question at a time. You just have to start doing one question at a time. You're not going to be as successful as you can be if you insist on this worrying about not having time to get to all the questions. I mean, we know people who have scored in the 170s on their official test. Carl scored 179 on his official test, and he did not finish the reading comprehension section. He guessed on one or two at the end. Still scored 179.
Yep.
You're nowhere close to that. You don't need to be finishing these sections. You need to be getting questions right.
And Ed, listen, you're going to think about trying to complete the whole section, or you're going to think about how much time you have left, or you're going to think about how you're failing, or you're not capable of scoring in the 170s. That's normal, but you got to start practicing coming back to the question you're on. Yep. So when you think that, don't get all tied up in knots because you thought that. And you're like, oh, I know I'm not supposed to. I think that's probably going on here too. You know that we say this on the show. So then you're beating yourself up for thinking about it. So what? Just come back to the question, back to the question. And then eventually those thoughts will go away. And when they come back, just again, come back to the question.
We notice the thoughts and we say, oh, I see you. Okay. And you let the thought go and you return to whatever sentence you were reading, whatever word you were reading, and you make sure that you're present to actually understand how easy that question really is. And when those distracting thoughts come into your mind again, you again say, oh, I see you. Okay, I got you. Yep. All right, I'm going to go back to this question though, and I'm going to go back to this sentence, and I'm going to get this one right. And you just repeatedly do that.
And here's a anecdote, or not an anecdote, sorry.
Anecdote?
An anecdote. No, that's not what I want. I want the antidote. The
Antidote.
Antidote, yeah.
Gotcha. Like snake, rattlesnake
like
serum.
The elixir that's going to cure you. A counter.
The antidote. Got it. Yeah.
The antidote is to remember, and this is true, that the best way to finish the section, the best way to do well on the test is to not worry about that, to focus on the question that you're on. Just remembering that sometimes helps. Yeah.
Return to the question that you're on.
Yeah, that is the best way to solve the problem that you're presently worried about.
Return to the moment.
Yep.
Do some meditation, Ed, if you're not already. You might find it helpful. 10 minutes a day. It can be magical, I think. You just catch yourself getting carried away by thoughts. That's all the practice is. All meditation is just noticing how your mind works. And if you can notice a little bit quicker that you're getting carried away, if you can return to the moment and the question that's in front of you, if you can make that return a little bit easier, a little bit quicker, you might experience amazing benefits on the test.
Yeah. Ed continues, before that 175, I just did individual sections and was scoring -2 to -5 on logical reasoning, with the ones missed usually being ones I didn't get to. But after that practice test, I started taking another to replicate my performance but got a 161 with -8 on logical reasoning. Well,
Ugh.
that's also your problem. Like you doubted the score, so you wanted to just pull the lever to see if you could get another one. Yeah.
And you're just clearly thinking way too much about single data points.
And the score. You're taking that second test.
If the 175 that I scored on a test where I had previously seen some of the questions was legit. It's like, okay, it wasn't. Who gives a shit? It's one data point. Move on. Like you need to be answering one question at a time. People keep doing one. They're trying to do the whole test at once, or they try to do the whole section at once. And they're like thinking about the 175, 175, 175. And it's like, no, you're on number 2. Get it right. Take your time with it, solve it, feel good about it, and then do number 3. We can't count to 175 if we don't count to 1 and 2 and 3 first.
Yeah, he says, I was so worried about each individual question that I couldn't even get to the last 7 questions in time. Here, I actually don't think you're worried about each individual question. Right. You're actually worried about doing all questions correctly, which means you're really thinking about all of them, not each individual. Because if you really care about each individual, then you don't care about the questions that came before, and you don't care about the ones that are coming after. It's just
I think you need to stop scoring yourself, Ed. You need to stop doing scored tests, and you need to go back to just drill logical reasoning and get better at logical reasoning. Get better at solving these questions one at a time.
Yep.
You're so obsessed with your score that it's actually hurting you. Really common, by the way.
Yeah. He continues, I understand that timing isn't something to focus on. Instead, understanding is key. However, I'm getting so caught up on making sure everything I do is correct that I overcomplicate even easy questions, leading me to spend what feels like so much more time on them than I would otherwise in untimed conditions. Could this be somewhat a function of the 85% rule? We've talked about that before. Do you remember this? Athletes who focus on going 100% of their performance or their speed end up actually running slower than athletes who are just trying to hit 85%. It kind of reminds me of when you talk about people going in to take their official test, they need to go in and take their next practice test. They're not going in to get their 180 or their 175 or something higher than what they've scored before. They're just going in to get a score in their score range. Just perform your performance.
Yeah, Ed, that 175 was an outlier. That 175 was the best you've ever scored. It was so good that you wrote a whole long ass email to us about it. That's part of you, but it's one data point within your range. And you apparently also have 161 within your range. So you're not good enough at the fundamentals to justify this idea of finishing all the sections on time and forcing yourself into the high or mid 170s. That's just not...
Well, not just about finishing, but also doing 100% on every question. We talk about that a lot, but it's almost like there's no flexibility. He's got his hands gripped on the steering wheel, the white knuckles. And it's, if I miss, he's heard us say it so many times, hey, just get every question you attempt right, that he thinks he has to, and any other option is a failure. And it's like, it's okay, calm down. You can miss a question here and there. It's gonna happen. It's not the end of the world. Yeah. Today I did another section getting -3, but missing 2 easier questions, level 2 and 3 difficulty. Okay, that's okay. You missed them. What was wrong with them? Do you understand them now? Do you understand why you missed them? Just learn from them. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn. Do you have any?
I have a hypothesis here that Ed is not doing all of that review fully. I think Ed is so caught up in section scores and full test scores. You know, Ed, you missed a logical reasoning question on that test that you got a 175 on. Did you review that question? Did you review the 4 reading comp questions you missed? Or did you just like high five yourself so hard about your 175? But then start to worry about whether you could replicate it. So then immediately take another practice test. Are you just pulling the lever on the slot machine to see what numbers come out? Or are you actually learning from these practice tests and practice sections that you're doing?
Do you have any suggestions on what I can do to deal with what I would describe as a lack of self-confidence? Review and get to a point where you can explain these questions to other people. That will confirm to yourself that you understand this shit.
And the next sentence indicates that you know exactly what you need to do.
I really love doing logical reasoning, and I know I can be perfect in this section if I approached it like drilling.
Okay.
So
maybe you approach your timed sections the way you approach drilling.
Yeah.
Which is one question at a time, focus on getting them right.
Yep.
Stop thinking about the time. You're getting them all right on drilling. So it's not a matter of like, I'm now overthinking it on the official test. I don't know. You're not. Take the time to solve the question, then move on.
Yep. Ed continues, maybe just do more sections to be comfortable with timed sections? ?
Maybe if you're doing the review, but I'm doubting that I think you're just going for score here and you're not learning enough from your timed sections. But yeah, you do need to do timed sections. I mean, if timed sections is a new thing for you, that's bad. You should be doing timed sections regularly so that you don't freak out when you're faced with timed sections.
He continues, I have a score of 93 in the drilling feature, mostly handling harder questions. So this might be affecting my outlook on the section as a whole. I mean, it's saying you're doing well. So yeah, you're doing well in drilling. So just start doing that in time sections and then review.
Yep.
Also, a quick side question. Does going down from live to basic create an overlap of tests used for drilling and practice tests or sections? Nope. There's some practice tests or sections available to me, but in my drilling history, it shows that I've already done some of them, although I've always used the default settings. That's possible that you were here before we updated all those settings, and now you have the new settings. Everyone was prompted to accept the new settings or reject them, and maybe Ed just reflexively accepted them. Anyways, thanks for reading this and for any advice you can provide. Yeah, you're welcome, Ed. Thanks for writing in, and thanks for prepping with us.
Thanks, Ed. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.